Welcome to the Goliath Sourcing Academy podcast, where we talk all things property deal sourcing, packaging, business systems, and outsourcing. Whether you're sourcing for yourself, packaging deals for others, or a bit of both, then you're listening to the right podcast. Get more strategies, tactics, and tips for sourcing killer property deals over at GoliathSourcingAcademy.com. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Dunsmore and Brad Lazarus.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Goliath Sourcing Academy podcast. This is session 19. My name's Brad Lazarus. I'm here with Mark Dunsmore, my co-host. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well, thank you, Brad. How are you?
God, that was a bit...
It's like we don't speak.
That was like a showbiz giggle. You just
it was. I was just thinking. You know, it's like whenever we do this, it's almost like we don't speak between podcasts.
No.
It's like, yeah, how are you, Brad? Well, I'm doing all right. Yeah, how are you? Oh, it's good.
But isn't that what you're meant to do in showbiz? That's what
it is.
I take all my cues.
We hate each other.
I take all my cues from Tom O'Connor. He's my showbiz idol. Or Bruce Forsyth. That's these people like pretend they haven't seen each other for the in between the seasons of their talk shows and stuff, haven't they? That's exactly what I was referring to. So, what's been happening? We've had a massive month, haven't we?
We have. In fact, just before we came on the podcast, we were talking about near overwhelm.
No, you were talking about near overwhelm. I was.
Hey, all right. Let me finish. I was going to stay about me, not about you, Brad. All right, Mr. Efficiency Systems.
Yeah. Go on. We'll go on. Carry on. I interrupted you.
Well, I think it's we obviously have recently launched our Insider Circle offering, haven't we? Which, well, it was a month ago. In fact, was the last podcast on the launch. It might have been just
it possibly
the launch.
Was, yeah.
Was the launch. And I think that we were fairly confident that we were going to get a few people on board. But we have been overwhelmed. I would say that it has been absolutely amazing, the uptake. But of course, what comes with massive uptake is massive responsibility on our part to make it, absolutely, the right decision to join our Insider Circle. And I think, we've been cramming the group full of content. We've been answering lots of questions. Already we've packaged and sold a deal of one of the Insider Circle members with another three deals, I think, 4 deals that we're working one-to-one on as well to package up. So it has been a busy 30 days.
It really has, and I'd say it's been for a kind of product, if you like, or in this property education space. We thought we'd have to do quite a lot more educating people as to what it was, because it's a membership program and there's a potential to joint venture with us, but there's also training in there, and I think we did do a reasonable job, didn't we, of showing people and explaining what the offer was. But yeah, the uptake's been more than pleasantly surprised at the uptake. It's been fantastic, actually. So, but it's also, as you say, then we have to deliver, and I think that really we started to think seriously about how we were going to deliver at a scaled level as well, which has led us on to this kind of talk of moving on to a new platform and creating a whole different membership area and all that kind of stuff. So there's some really kind of exciting stuff to come, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that I suppose is very exciting is the fact that the reason we're having to consider moving away from one platform into another platform is because of the volume of content. That is why we're actually having to consider moving platforms, which is, a great, put it this way, it's a great problem for us to have, because that means that the members are getting huge value already. And again, it's all about, we want to make it so that your monthly membership fee is a no-brainer. And already the feedback from the group, after their first month is exactly that. So it's good. It is really
no,
good.
I think you're Mark specifically referring to there as part of the membership. You get access to the private Facebook group, and trying to find information that wasn't posted today or yesterday inside a Facebook group is just a nightmare. So you just can't, and there is so much fantastic content that's going in almost on an hourly basis into that Facebook group that we need to find another platform. We have found another platform from which we can organize that information so people can actually go back and look and easily find previous threads, which essentially have the answers to the questions that they're looking to get answered in. So we'll be updating you on how we're morphing and changing things, and if the Insider Circle might be right for you, over the next few weeks or so. So actually, if you are interested, go to goliathsourcingacademy.com/insiders circle. That's /insiders plural circle, and you can find out a load more information there as well. So let's anything else on that?
No, just we are revolutionizing property education.
I think what you meant there was disrupting.
No, I don't like using that word because someone else has used that word. So I'm going to use revolutionize because that is what I do. And it's not propreneur, but it is a good word, I think. Disrupting is correct. We are using that. But I do think we are revolutionizing the way that content and training and is being not only the volume of content, but the value of the content that is being given across. I think there's this sort of misconception, I think, in the property world, where if you're running training courses, you have to charge thousands and thousands of pounds for, basically a very tiny part of the education process. And what we're doing is saying you can come on and pay monthly for a constantly evolving training process, constantly evolving courses, constantly evolving content that keeps up to date with the market as it currently stands without having to shell out £5,000. And I think it's revolutionary.
It is. No, I would agree, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of people that are on the Insider Circle do as well. So yeah, if you're interested, go to that website and have a look.
Yes, at risk of making this a pitch, let's move on.
I think we've successfully done that for the last 3 podcasts, to be fair. But I think we're allowed that. We're allowed.
Yeah, we are.
I think everything else is free. Actually, the pitch was free. You just had to listen to it. So, what have we got on the show? The Facebook group Q&A. This is from Agi Keramidas. I hope I've pronounced that right, Agi. What's this one from Agi?
The reality is, Brad, that each podcast that we do, what I am deliberately doing is looking for questions with people with difficult names so that you struggle. The questions actually aren't even by these people. I just put these names at the end.
I can see there's on our show notes here. There's a link to this. I don't even know what that link is. Is there a link on it? Yeah.
I think that's just a link to his profile. To be fair, 'cause I copied it from Facebook.
Some random profile. No, Agi is real. Agi
is real, and Agi has joined the Insider Circle. So, but this was actually posted in the public Facebook group, and I thought it was a very apt question, because at the moment flips are very much an in strategy, the buy, refurb, resell. But also there was a comment in the group below it, which was kind of in some ways correct, but in some ways incorrect. And I think this is always the risk of taking comments on Facebook groups as gospel, because the reality is there's a lot of interpretation to things, such as desired numbers, all that sort of thing. So this question is, when you package a buy to sell flip, i.e. a buy, refurbish, resell, what kind of percentage profit would you consider as a good deal? I've heard 10%, but I would appreciate your insight. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail about that and just run through why there is no black and white answer. It is very much a very open to different factors, which we'll go into in the answer shortly.
Good stuff. And Sourcing with Mark is on focus. It's your topic of 2017, isn't it? Focus.
It is focus. It is. It is 2017, the year of focus.
Focus, and this is about don't get distracted by trying to help everyone. Intriguing. Give us a brief summary. What do you mean by that?
So one thing that this is very specifically geared at property sourcers who are looking to go out and find deals for others. So, and one of the common themes I see, especially from those who are more new to the industry, who have come in, they're looking to source property deals to package and sell for a fee in order to build a deposit pot for them to go and buy their own deals. They can quite often get distracted by the noise and by the sort of, just everything that's going on in the property industry. There are investors being churned out in their hundreds by all the property education companies, the progressives, the elites, the pins, and all of these investors are coming through wanting deals. The reality, however, is that not every one of them is going to commit. They're all going to have, you're going to have weak ones and strong ones. And what I wanted to really go into in this Sourcing with Mark is to help people not make the mistakes that are commonplace at the start of your journey, which is really trying to help everyone with every strategy in every area, and losing focus on your actual message, your specialisms, and basically becoming a jack of all trades, master of none, which unfortunately in the world of sourcing can mean that you don't earn an income. You'll waste a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and you'll still not get anywhere by basically falling foul of the common mistakes that newbies do. So that is Sourcing with Mark.
Good stuff. And in the lab with me this week is the second of a three-parter now.
It's like a BBC series.
It is. It's the In the Lab box set.
It's 2 of 3.
It's episode 2 of 3. It might be 4. No, it won't be 4. I'm definitely going to finish this one off on 3.
4, dear me.
It might be.
You're going to have a mid-season break.
A secret episode. This is how to build your personal property professionals brand, and this is part 2, as I say, of part 3. Now, part 1, I talked about the importance of building your personal brand and why you should be building the brand, and I've even used 2 or 3 examples of the value of having a personal brand in the property space. So this. In the lab, in this second part, I'm going to look at some of the steps that we'll actually use to build out the brand itself. So these are actual kind of action steps as well. And then there's also a checklist, which I've got with that, which would be like a checklist just like a shopping checklist of all the things that you should be doing. So stick around for that one. That's In the Lab with Brad. So next up, we've got the Facebook group Q&A, so let's get on with the show.
Now it's time for the Goliath Facebook group Q&A session. Got any burning property sourcing related questions? Tap into the minds of hundreds of property pros just like you inside our free Facebook group. Head over to www.goliathfbgroup.com.
Okay, so like we talked about earlier on, Agi Keramidas, he has asked, when you package buy to sell or flip deals, what kind of percentage profit would you consider as a good deal? I've heard 10%, but I would appreciate your insights. Now, this is quite a common question that is asked with regards to flip deals, and I will answer it in sort of a few different stages. And like I mentioned sort of earlier on in the show, there's no clear-cut answer. There's no black and white. And what you've got to be very careful with when you're sourcing and packaging deals for your clients or for investors is that you don't discount potential deals because they don't meet a criteria that someone has given you. Now, for quite a long time, certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, the general number that investors were looking for as a net percentage profit, so i.e. the profit on their money invested after all costs had been taken off, was 20%. Now, 20% net profit has become increasingly difficult to get. The big reason for this is the market is probably more buoyant now than it was 18 months ago. A more buoyant market means that the sellers are less likely to accept big chunks of money off the price. But what it also means is that there are a lot of relatively new investors coming in and accepting less profit. Now, if they're accepting less profit, then what that means is that what they accept less means your offer is that way less than what they would offer, and you're going to be losing the deals to those people. So what you need to factor in is, what is it that investors are likely to want to achieve? Is it a percentage net profit? Is it an actual number? So, do investors want a minimum of 10 grand? Do they want a minimum of 8 grand? Do they want a minimum of, £20,000? And that can very much depend on the investor themselves. But as an idea, we have shifted our flip criteria, and now we still look for a minimum of 10%, but generally ideally we look for a 15% return and a minimum of 10 grand. So we'd want a minimum of a 10 grand profit after all the costs, selling costs, etc., etc. So obviously, how are you going to know the difference, and what are the best things? Well, actually, what we need to do is we need to have a range of investors that we're looking to sell to, package and sell to. Or again, you can factor in things such as bridging, for example. So there may be an opportunity to buy these properties through bridging yourself, which means you need less of an investment from your investor. You can pay them a percentage interest on the money that they lend, which means that you can afford to take a smaller profit. But ultimately, that smaller profit isn't going to fall into the 10%, the 15%, or the minimum of 10K. You just have to be sensible, And what I would always say to property sourcers is, would you consider that deal to be a good deal? Because the reality is that you are going to have to package and sell this to an investor. And if the numbers don't tick the boxes, such as the 20% net profit or the minimum of 15 grand or whatever it might be, you are going to have to sell that deal to your investor by explaining the pros, the cons, why they should take this, etc., etc., etc. So you're going to need to be confident that you would be happy to take that deal. If you had the funds, you would take that deal for yourself. And that is the important thing to remember when you're packaging and selling buy-to-sell deals. Not necessarily the profit, but more to do with the fact that, is that a good deal, and is it something that you would take for yourself? So hopefully that helps, Agi. I mean, obviously, if you or any of the other listeners do want to go into a bit more detail about that, excuse me, just feel free to drop comments in the Facebook group, and we can go into it in a bit more detail. But hopefully that summarizes what our thoughts are really on percentage versus amounts when it comes to flips.
Great stuff. Thank you, Agi. Again, apologies if I got that wrong. If you've got any questions or you want to discuss this, you can go, and you're not a member of the group yet, you can go to goliathfbgroup.com. Just request to join. We'll allow you access immediately, and post your questions, and we can carry on the conversation on the Facebook group. So fantastic. Right, let's move straight on with the show. Next up is Sourcing with Mark.
Sourcing with Mark. Innovative and advanced strategies for doing better property deals.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this session of Sourcing with Mark. And this session is all about focus. Now, with all the recent, we've had a lot of new members join our Insider Circle recently, following the 30-day launch. And already, what I can tell is that there are a number of relatively new sources who are getting distracted by what is a very busy, noisy world, which is the property world. Now, what I wanted to do is part of our webinar month is exactly on focus, but I thought, you know what? For the podcast, for this week's Sourcing with Mark, I think it's very, very apt in order for me to go into this. So what made me really sort of come up with this, and what made me think about this? Historically, when I've done one-to-one coaching, one of the first things we always do is get the students to write down a plan, write down the goals, write down their weekly targets, their weekly activities, and fit it into a weekly planner, and then go about it. But before we do that, we've got to decide what strategy they're primarily going to be sourcing for, where are they going to be sourcing, what's the message we're going to be putting out there. And all of this stuff is really, really important in order to stop you getting distracted. Now, what I mean by distracted is, as a property sourcer, quite often what you are doing is you have time. So what most people assume is that a property sourcer has loads of time, and if they're a property investor who maybe is still in full-time work or just really can't be bothered doing the whole grunt work of, trailing around estate agencies or writing loads of direct mail letters, maybe they don't have a clue where to begin with marketing. So they're going to want to leverage the property sourcer. Now, what this means for the keen property sourcer, especially when you first start out, one of the first things you are going to do is probably attend property network meetings. Now, in attending property networking meetings, what you are going to have is, as soon as any of the investors work out that you are a property sourcer, they're going to come up to you and say, I'm looking for this, can you find it? I'm looking for this, can I find it? I'm looking for this, can you find it? I've got a budget of this and I want this, can you find it? And the reality, of course, is that as a newbie, you're keen, you're excited, you want to take on as many clients as possible. And what you'll do is you'll go, yeah, I can do that. 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 Now, where you will face a massive problem is that the reality is it is unlikely that all of those investors are going to want the same strategy in the same area. Now, they may want a similar area, so they may, for example, in Leeds, they may want North Leeds, they may want South Leeds, they may want East Leeds, West Leeds, they may want just on the outskirts of Leeds. If they've come to a Leeds meeting, they might want Harrogate, they might want York, they might want Huddersfield, Halifax. But the point is, the likelihood is they're not going to want the same thing in the same area. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be then thinking, right, I've got all these investors, fantastic. Now, how am I going to get deals for them all? Now, of course, what you could do is you could send out marketing campaigns for every different type of strategy in all the different areas that you've got investors wanting. But that's not going to, A, do your marketing budget any good, because you're going to spread yourself too thin and not be able to have a consistent marketing approach. Of course, if you have got a budget of £1,000, £1,500 a month for your marketing, then yeah, you could maybe target a few different areas with a few different strategies. But the reality is most of you listening will not have that as a monthly marketing budget. So this is the first big point, which is all about focus, which is you need to really know what you are going to specialize in sourcing. Now, this doesn't mean that you're not going to source other things by packaging deals that come in that don't quite fit the main strategy, but they're going to be the exception rather than the rule. You want the focus to be on one particular investment strategy in one particular area, and you're going to have one very clear message to the people that you're sending out marketing material to, whether that be agents, whether that be homeowners, whether that be landlords. The point is you're going to have a very clear message. Now, what this also means is that you're not going to be distracted by, for example, investors in Facebook groups that are commenting on posts that maybe you're putting out saying, I'm looking for investors, looking for this type of deal in Leeds. Then an investor comes and goes, well, I don't want one of those, but I want one of these in Leeds. Would you be able to help? You're going to be able to go, if I get anything that comes along that meets those criteria, I will be certain to make a note of your details. But my primary sourcing strategy is this, and this is our focus, but I will stay in touch should anything come in. Very clear message. You're not telling them no, but the point is you're managing expectation, and you've not got a load of investors out there expecting the world from you when you are over-promising, and then you're going to under-deliver, which is not going to do you any good whatsoever. Now, the other distraction you're going to find is you're going to find a number of property sources that are going to try and leverage your time, marketing, budget, experience, training. Perfect example of this. I've got a cash investor looking for HMO deals in Manchester. Has anyone got anything? Now, if you are sourcing HMOs in Manchester for outright purchasing, then yeah, you can maybe get in touch and say you've got some deals that might be of interest. But what you don't want to do is think, well, there's a guy that's got a cash buyer, or a really good example that's currently going around seems to be these cash buyers that have up to £2 to £5 million. I've already been approached by a number of different sources, newbie sources, going, we've got this fund of £5 million, they want to buy properties, and you're like, are you direct to them? No, it's through another sourcer. The likelihood is it's probably through another 3 sources, and that is where the messages get diluted, deals fall through, sounds great, but trust me, having done it now for a number of years in the property industry and then a couple of years in the sourcing industry, you will find there are a lot of time wasters. People tell you they've got budgets of 5 million when they don't. What they actually have is the ability to get bridging finance, but then the reality of getting bridging finance for those numbers is more difficult, so the chances are they don't have that income, and then it all gets very messy. So this is where your focus really, really comes into play, because you're not going to get distracted by those people. You can make a note of their details, but certainly don't go off. Sorry, you can tell it's live. Certainly don't go off and try and source properties for those people, because it is not going to work if it is not focused along your primary strategy. So the important thing here is to remain disciplined. So in terms of getting your strategy, your focus in place, what you need to do is you need to choose the main investment strategy that you're going to focus on. So is it going to be rent to rents? Is it going to be lease options? Is it going to be below market value properties? Is it going to be flips? Once you've decided your main investment strategy, now remember, like I mentioned before, it's not your only strategy you're going to source for, but it's your focus. Your main investment strategy is one strategy. Once you've got that strategy, what you're then going to do is you're going to choose an area that you're going to focus in. So what does that strategy, what type of area does that strategy need to be in? Now you're going to find the area that strategy is going to work best in. So you find your strategy, your area. Now you're going to choose the marketing methods that you're going to use. So you're going to see, is it going to be direct mail? Is it best to go through estate agents? Are we going to do the private ads? Are we going to go through the HMO list? All of these things form part of each of the steps. So remember, strategy, area, marketing methods. And then to keep you really focused, you're going to schedule your week with targets, KPIs of how you are going to approach the people that are most likely to be able to bring you deals to the table, whether it's agents, direct to vendor, and you're going to set that up. We call it your plan of attack. So your plan of attack is choosing your investment strategy, choosing the area you're going to do, doing the marketing methods, what are the best marketing methods for that strategy, how are you going to schedule your week, set the targets up in order to achieve your goals for the week, and then go out and get it. You know, that's the reality. Go out and take massive action. Now, this week's content upgrades are a KPI table to help you, and also a weekly planner, just to really help people focus in their activity, I suppose. So KPI table and weekly planner are the content upgrades this week. But remember, stay disciplined. Don't get distracted by other people's noise. There are plenty of investors out there looking for the strategy that you focus on. Don't run around trying to source for 20 different investors with 20 different plans, you will not do well. I will tell you that now. You'll spread yourself too thin. You will not have a consistent marketing approach. You will not build a consistent message. And in effect, you will become the equivalent to the jack of all trades, master of none. And you will not source and package deals. You'll get deal desperate. You'll start doing things that you regret. And you still won't get the fees because it will all fall through in the end. So hopefully that's been useful. Remember, focus, focus, focus. That's what's going to get you results. Hope you've enjoyed it. Happy sourcing.
Thank you, Mark. Great stuff as ever, you content creating machine. Next up. So I got a question though.
The contentator.
Don't. Everybody will be using that on their, all these internet marketers will be using that on their Facebook status now.
Hashtag contentator.
Contentator. So focus, obviously really important. Your buzz phrase of 2017, buzzword of 2017. So obviously no matter what stage you're at, it's going to be important. But if you're at like a beginner stage, and you're a bit of a newbie into sourcing, it can be very, and we see this a lot, don't we, in the Facebook groups and what have you, people just saying yes to absolutely everything, and particularly to those investors, as you've pointed out, to investors wanting particular deals and just essentially saying yes, I can go and get you those deals. So what would be your advice to newbies to give them the best chance of staying focused and getting results as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massively valid point, and I think sometimes there are. I mean, everyone will probably have seen the Richard Branson quote, which is, you know, if you're offered an opportunity, say yes, and then worry about how you're going to do it later. And the reality is that unfortunately, that doesn't apply to every scenario, and it certainly doesn't apply to something that if you're completely new and you say yes to every opportunity that comes along, you will very quickly fail because you will not succeed in anything, because you will just not be learning enough in one particular strategy, one particular area. You'll find that you'll go and spend a lot of time sourcing for someone that you told you that they were a cash buyer up to £5 million, and then actually find that you find them something and they're not a cash buyer up to £5 million. They know someone that knows someone that knows someone else whose cousin knows an auntie who lives in Spain, who also knows an uncle that lives in Newcastle that's got potential access to finance. And you don't want that. You just do not want to deal with those people. And the reality is what you want to be doing is you want to be so, as a complete newbie, you need to be able to learn enough to know what strategy you are going to be comfortable sourcing. So what is the strategy that you are most interested in that if a deal, what is the strategy that you want for the future? What is the strategy that you want to potentially build a portfolio for in the future? Then that is your focus. Focus on that one strategy. Your area, I would always say, as a property sourcer, you need to be focused on an area that is fairly close to where you are. Right at the beginning, as a complete newbie, focus on an area that is close to you that you know or can at least go out and research more than just the online research stuff. Because trust me, trying to source properties 100, 150, 200 miles away from you on a consistent basis as a complete beginner will be very difficult. It will also be very difficult when your investors are telling you that you might find someone who wants to source in Manchester, then you also find another investor that wants you to source for them in Sunderland, and then another investor that wants deals in Leeds, Manchester, or Sunderland. The reality is you're not going to be able to service them very well, and you'll end up running around like an absolute lunatic trying to generate leads in all those places with minimal marketing spend, because face it, most beginners that go into property sourcing don't have huge marketing budgets either. And it just means you're not going to get very much done. it's going to affect your confidence. And that is the biggest reason why people stop sourcing, is because they don't get the deals as quickly as they think they're going to get them. And they waste a lot of time chasing rainbows.
Too many pots of gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of too many rainbows. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the biggest mistake you can make as a newbie is saying yes to everyone. So you need to be confident in your strategy. You need to be confident in your area. You can then go and find an investor that is looking for that strategy in that area, and then you focus your attention on that information that you've gathered. And it might take you a little bit longer to get the first deal through, but the point is that everything that you're doing is, remember to systemize everything, make a note of what you're doing, make a note of the processes, because that is what's going to enable you to then spread out further, go and source in other areas, because it's that mastery of your local area that will enable you to do stuff nationally. So as a complete newbie, focus, on a lot of anything local, on one strategy. You will come across deals in other strategies, and obviously having the support and guidance of people that know. So that's one of the big things we help with Insider Circle, of course. If they find a deal that doesn't quite meet with the focus that they're on, we can help them by packaging that up and selling it as an alternative strategy. But don't get bogged down. You will constantly, especially as a newbie, where you're absolutely desperate to make your $5,000 a week income that you've been promised on a sourcing course, you will be desperate to get those deals as quickly as possible. And you will think that the best way to get those deals as quickly as possible is to source for 100 investors in 100 different parts of the UK and hope for the best. And I tell you now that it doesn't work that way. You will get better results sourcing for 2 or 3 investors in your local area than you will for 100 investors looking in 100 different areas.
And that parallels any business.
Absolutely.
You can't serve 15 different audiences well. You can serve 2 or 3 at most well. Otherwise you dilute your message, and that refers back to what I'm talking about and then the Lab with Brad in terms of building your brand and being focused on who you are serving and who you're creating your content for. So the same rules apply. So just because there's an opportunity, you shouldn't run off to it. Or what you perceive to be it might be an opportunity, and it might be a genuine opportunity, but I think if that takes you away from the opportunity that you've identified as the right one, then it's not one that you should be running off to.
No, exactly that.
So, anything else on that one?
No, I think we've
covered that.
I think that is covered. I think it's...
Good job.
The reality is as well, I'll tell everyone now that when I first started sourcing property, I did exactly what I've just told you not to do. And that is kind of the point of what I'm trying to get across, because I did that.
Yeah, I remember having conversations with you, and you were all over the country in the car.
I was in Europe. I mean, I was sourcing in Portugal, Spain.
Yeah.
I was sourcing in London. I was literally sourcing across the world.
Yeah.
And that sounds amazing. And trust me, at the time, I thought it was amazing. But the reality was the results were not great. They were so erratic that it just didn't, until I started to really hone in a focus on what I was doing, the results didn't really. The key to anything is consistent results. You might get a deal packaged up for an investor that you're sourcing for randomly in an area 150 miles away, but are you going to be doing that on a regular, monthly, consistent basis? And that is the most important part of setting your business up as a newbie. Well, any business, no matter whether you're a newbie or not.
But as you say, it's mastery. It's about, you don't get consistent results and grow those results if you're scattergun, and you're not going to master your craft if you don't stay focused on one particular path. It just doesn't happen.
No. And you will be distracted. There is no doubt that at some point on your journey, you will be distracted. If you're going out and doing the things like the networking events, the meeting investors for coffee at the local coffee shop, all these things, if you're doing that, you will be distracted.
But I don't think there's anything inherently bad about being distracted, as long as you can zoom out and that distraction doesn't overtake your focus. I think it can almost be quite refreshing to be distracted. I know you and me are both like that. We like to go off in little kind of burrows and paths on the internet, finding little bits of information. Well, I used to call you the magpie on a lead, didn't I? It's
last week.
Yeah, it's good. I think it kind of opens the mind to new ideas and stuff, but then almost kind of have a place, a repository, if you like, where you put all of those distractions, put those ideas somewhere else and tuck them away on a Trello board. And we have a future board, don't we, for Goliath, where we stick a whole bunch of different ideas and what have you. And, start a notebook just of distractions, if you like, but then make sure that every week you're looking to get back on that focused path again.
Yeah, exactly that. Because the thing is, what you don't want to do is you need to have your plan and your focus first. And then what you don't want to do is go and meet investors for coffee, where you'll spend half an hour to an hour with someone that you could have pre-qualified that isn't looking in the area you're looking in initially, because you'll spend a lot of weight. That will be wasting a lot of time. But you will not know that you're wasting a lot of time until you've built your plan. And that is nicely segued into the content upgrade, Brad.
Oh, stop it. Who's doing the segue?
Oh, well, I'm in one of those moods today.
Go on. What is it? What's the contentinator got this week?
The Mark podcast spin-off. Mark goes solo.
Mark goes solo. Love that. Go on. Does that give me a break for a week or two? Are you like the guy in One Direction? Actually, you're not at all. Right, let's get
Which one? They're all as bad as each other.
Any of them. What have you got this week?
So the big one this week is actually a weekly planner and the KPI targets table. Right. So that you can set your targets, set your goals, and also plan them into your week in order to give you that focus and that organization, so that the activity you're doing is moving you towards success.
Good stuff. Excellent. Thank you. I think we well and truly dealt with that, didn't we?
We did.
Good.
We did.
Okay, so next up, In the Lab with Brad.
In the Lab with Brad. Marketing, systems, and outsourcing hacks for property pros.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of In the Lab with Brad. How to build your online personal property professionals brand. Now, this is the second installment of a 3-part series. If you haven't listened to part 1, you can go back to episode 18 for that. That's goliathsourcingacademy.com/session 18. Now, it's not vital that you listen to it, but if the topic of building a brand online is new to you, then part 1 is a must listen, as it gives you good context. So, very briefly, in part 1, I talked about the power of building an online brand using an example of a property developer who, through the power of her online brand, was able to attract £1 million in JV funding in less than 24 hours from 28 different investors. Now, that for me was quite a breakthrough moment in the property sector, where the power of digital marketing really shone through. Now, I also showed you an example of how a personal online brand can help position property deal sources as authority and experts in the eyes of landlords and homeowners they're trying to generate leads and interest from. Now, using digital marketing strategies and tactics to build your online personal brand is powerful. So the opportunity to reach more of your chosen audience is significant for those who choose to embrace it. Now, I've always said that the property sector lags significantly far behind in its levels of sophistication when it comes to digital marketing, and therein lies the opportunity for property professionals to gain an advantage over their competition. So there's a very brief summary of part 1 in this series. So go back and listen to that in episode 18 for more details. So now let's look at some of the steps that you can take to actually building your personal online property professionals brand. Step 1 is define your target audience. Now, this is possibly the most overlooked but important part in the process of developing an online brand strategy. So ask yourself, who are you going to serve? Who are you looking for your message to appeal to? So by being clear about who your audience is, the rest of your online brand strategy falls very nicely into place. So for Goliath Sourcing Academy, our audience is everyone that wants to source property deals. Now that's actually quite broad. Now I like to see audiences as layers of an onion. So on the outside of the onion, the audience is quite broadly defined. Now as you move in layer by layer, the audience narrows and becomes more defined. So in the case of Goliath, the example that I'm using, the outer layer is anyone wanting to source property deals. But if we go a couple of layers into the onion, the audience narrows to anyone who wants to source and package property deals to create a job replacing income. So by narrowing the focus on who we're looking to serve, we can much more effectively focus our communication and getting our message across to them. So property deal sources will tend to have multiple audiences that they're targeting. So everyone from homeowners to landlords to investors are all on the outer layer of the onion. But go a layer in and you start to narrow the audience to homeowners who are in mortgage arrears, for example, or landlords being hit by higher tax bills, for example. So targeting multiple audiences is fine and necessary in many ways, but be aware that the wider you cast your audience net, the less focused your message will be and the less likely you are to connect on a deep level with your audience. So, step 2, build your online home. By an online home, I mean a website. Building your online presence on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and other social networks is all part of the process, but it's essentially a means to an end. Now, I'll elaborate on what I mean by that in future steps, but by having your own website, you're in control. It's your asset online. It's the equivalent of building a house on land you own rather than land you're leasing with no lease agreement in place. Now, what I see so often in property is people posting some really valuable info on their personal profile and doing a great job of positioning themselves as an expert, but they have no website. Yes, they have 4,500 Facebook friends and they get some likes and shares, but there's no way for them to leverage their message and reach more of their audience beyond that Facebook post. Now, if Facebook decides to shut your account down for whatever reason, then you have no recourse. All that great work you've done to position yourself is lost. So by driving people to your website, you control the platform that your message is communicated on. Step 3, create content that your target audience finds useful, valuable, and positions you as an expert authority. So one of the key principles behind building an online brand is to produce as much value-filled content as possible. Now, at this point, most people say, but what do I create content on, or what do I create content about? The answer is simple. Create content that answers your target audience's questions and helps them solve the problems that they have. Now, building a brand means being seen as a genuine expert and a go-to person in the eyes and the minds of your target audience. The content you produce must genuinely be something your audience wants to know about. So often I see people producing content that is essentially selling their services. That's okay to do once in a while, but it quickly turns people away and off you if you do it all of the time. So at Goliath Sourcing Academy, we put a lot of resource into producing content that we genuinely believe is valuable and useful to you, our audience. How do we know what to produce? Well, we ask you personally. We analyze the threads on Facebook groups to see what problems people are facing, what real problems people are facing. We log all the questions that come in from our website. We collate information from lots of different places on the problems, the hurdles, and the challenges that you're having. These all form the ideas for the content that we'll eventually produce. Now, doing it this way means that we're always striving to create content that you actually want to listen to or read about or watch videos on, etc., etc. Step 4. Create your content in a format you feel comfortable with and your audience will be most receptive to. So let's go a layer deeper than the previous step and now consider what the best medium is to create your content on. Now, there are fundamentally 3 mediums to choose from, really. There's written, there's visual, and there's audio, or in other words, blog posts, podcasts, or videos. Now, there are of course kind of multiple variations and types of each, but they all boil down to these 3. Now it's a case of just choosing one to begin with. When choosing, you're looking to find a balance between a medium that you feel comfortable with and one that your target audience will be receptive to. Now, you'll obviously be aware that at Goliath Sourcing Academy, we chose podcasting as ours. Well, why? Because we enjoy talking a lot, obviously, and it's easier and quicker for Mark and I to create audio content than it is to write copy. And most importantly, we knew that you, our audience, are busy people. You have hectic lives, and the best way for us to get our message across to you is likely when you're doing other things like driving or going to the gym or waiting for your daughter or son's ballet or football training to finish. Now, writing a 1,500-word blog post and expecting you to read it wasn't realistic for us to do or for you to kind of consume. So there are the first four steps in the online personal brand building process. Now, in part 3 and the final part in this series, I'll show you the steps that you need to take to begin to get your message out to as many of your target audience as you can. In the meantime, you can download the free resource that goes with this, which is the Online Personal Property Professionals Brand Checklist. This is a step-by-step checklist of everything that you need to do to get your brand out there and attracting your chosen target audience and positioning you as an authority expert. So you can get that if you go to goliathsourcingacademy.com/session 19. That's /session 19.
Brilliant as always, Brad. Can't wait for part 3.
In the box set.
I know. I can't wait to get the box set. Will it be on DVD?
It will be on Netflix.
Will it be on VHS? Yeah. Amazon Prime?
Oh, now you are. You're putting yourself squarely in my era.
I know.
I love it. You always think you're so much younger than me, but your reference points are the same as mine.
They are, but I watch UK Gold. So, now obviously, we'll just go into this whole 3-parter thing is focused around personal branding. But, I mean, I always associate branding with things like, Coke and Pepsi and the big companies, don't they, all about PR and everything else. So, I mean, what's the difference between having a personal brand and a company brand?
Essentially not that much. And I think...
Done.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
That was a great show.
On
to the next one.
Part 3 next week. No, I don't think that much, really. Not a huge amount, particularly when it comes to property. Essentially, a company brand is really built upon reputation and credibility. And when you're a big brand like Coke or Pepsi, you're not creating content as such, although they are creating, like I talk about in the personal branding steps, which you've just listened to. But in like Coke and Pepsi are creating content now because that's just the way the internet works, and you need to create videos for YouTube and Facebook and what have you. But essentially, they spend money on advertising. What we do as a personal brand is we don't have the money to spend on advertising. We create content which both of those communicate a reputation and essentially your brand values ultimately. So, I mean, if you look at, but they're really kind of the same ultimately. And if you look at companies like, the elite legacies of the world, you'll see that there's on their own, they are brands, but actually they can't necessarily, they need people like Robbie Fowler to sell their courses. They need a person. The person is the one that puts across and that communicates the value, if you like. someone like Martin. Is it Martin? Who's Martin? Who's the guy on Homes Under the Hammer?
Martin Roberts.
Is it Martin Roberts? I've written down here Martin Fowler. But
I know, he's in EastEnders. He still is in EastEnders.
Is he?
He's back.
Is he? Right. So that shows that's your era and mine. Another reference point we share. I
think you'll find I just Googled it.
Is that what, you looked at that on the show notes and just let me go with Martin Fowler,
I did. I thought, yes, he's going to say Martin Fowler, and I can do some sort of really good brand.
Martin Fowler from EastEnders teaches you how to build a property portfolio fast. So,
although the way that Homes Under the Hammer are going, it could be anyone that's presenting that soon.
It is. Well, it's Dion Dublin, isn't it?
Yeah, good old Dion.
Well, there's another one. Like Dion Dublin will be the next face of an elite legacy course. I mean, mark my words. That's exactly that's absolutely what's going to happen. Why? Because there's an identity behind it, essentially. So, they're using that personal brand to push the company brand in that respect. So, Dion Dublin, ironically enough, doesn't produce fantastic content that helps landlords and sellers and investors and attract investors as such. He was a football player. So that's the kind of the world that we're now in. We're in that celebrity obsessed world in that regard. So
look at Trump.
Absolutely, but they've used that personal brand in order to kind of underpin and add value to the elite legacy brand. So they're very much kind of tied in, but as an individual, as a person, even with but you want, you've got a company brand that you also represent, i.e. it's your sourcing business, let's say. They're both essentially intertwined. So I know one of the most visited pages on any website is an About Us page. And the worst thing that you can do on an About Us page for a company website is not put anything about you, the person, or the people in the business, because there's no identity there. People identify with individuals, with people, with persons, with personalities, with the values of that individual, their integrity, their credibility, not with a logo. So when you're in that scenario and you're actually creating your company website, on your About Us page, it should be all about you. On your contact page, you should have your name in there. Give people a reason. People want a reason to contact a person, not a company. So you'll see on the Goliath Sourcing Academy page, it's all about us and how we can help you. That's essentially, it's about, even though Goliath Sourcing Academy is a brand, essentially the brand lives and breathes through Mark and I. So that's how they really come together. So essentially for me, there's not that much difference. They play off each other, and the personal brand feeds the company brand in that regard. So, so that's it. Are we...
Perfect. Yeah,
Sorry,
no, it's good. Thank you very much.
I got slightly distracted there. I thought we'd stop recording there. Got all... But we're fine. So yeah, that's pretty much slightly technical glitch there. So look, as part of the this 3-parter, and don't want Mark calling me lazy for not providing you with a content upgrade this week, I've got the very long-worded Property Professionals Online Personal Brand Checklist.
Wow.
Are you still with me?
That is intense.
Yeah. So this is a...
You could have had that title in a 3-parter.
Yes. This is a... yeah. This is basically a shopping list of all the things that we're going through in this 3-parter, but some more as well. So a little bit more detail than what I'm able to get through in 10 Minute in the Labs. So yeah, that's in the lab with Brad this week, and the content upgrade. And your content upgrade for this week, Mark, was the weekly planner and KPI targets spreadsheet. So you can get both of those if you go to goliathsourcingacademy.com/session19. That's /session19. Is there anything else that we need to cover?
No, I think that's been a information-packed podcast as always.
Good. Okay. Well, we've got a busy day ahead, so I think we should.
We have. Shouldn't we? We've got another webinar in about 2 hours.
Yeah. All good, all good. So, thanks again for joining us. I'm going to leave again. Actually, before we do go, a big thank you to everybody for listening. Always grateful for that. We're never going to forget how grateful we are, and stop thanking you for taking the time to listen. So, the biggest compliment that you can give us if you got value out of this is please share a link on your social profiles, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, wherever, to the webpage where this podcast is, which is goliathsourcingacademy.com/session19. Anybody that's interested in property has to start out by sourcing a deal. So if there's anybody that you know who's interested in property, building a portfolio, doing anything in property, please share it with them, because they've got to source a deal, and this podcast is the right kind of listening for them.
Wow, that was an amazing appeal.
An appeal.
Deary me.
Brad
I was waiting to see the phone number to ring.
All right.
To donate £5, style
Just ask
Goliath,
our
£5.
Loyal audience for their support.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And don't forget, everyone, that if you do want a question answered, also ask that in the group, because we will answer the questions on the show. Okay,
good stuff. Now we're just prolonging the ending of this because we don't want to leave, do we? But I'm going to say, Mark, over to you to say the goodbyes.
Well, as always, everyone, hope you've enjoyed the show, and take care. Focus, remember, focus, and as always, happy sourcing.